trust your instincts. If you're working on a team, like trust the people that you're working with too, because like you're working with them because they're good at what they do.
How difficult is it to get the fixed cameras right? Tell us a little bit about the music, because I was fooled. You use an artist name for the OST.
It's discouraging because you're like, oh, I don't want someone to see what I did and only focus on the bad parts of it. Like, people who understand will get it. They will be like, oh, I understand what this person was trying to do. Yes, it's not perfect, because literally nothing is perfect. Like, it's an impossible standard that we try to hold ourselves to.
Hi, and welcome back to Quest Markers. On this show, we talk about video games and the people behind them. I'm Marina. I make music and sounds for games. And today I am so excited to have Vincent Adinolfi with us. Vincent is a lead developer on Heartworm, a fantastic survival horror game that came out earlier this year. And we'll be talking about Heartworm's development and digging into what it's like making a survival horror game. As always, this episode will be timestamped with the topics we cover, so feel free to jump around if you're watching the VOD. And if you're here with us on Twitch, again, we do have emote-only chat for the duration of the recording, but we'll open it up for Q&A at the very end. I am so excited for today's conversation. And Vincent, before we get into your intro, how are you staying hydrated? What are you drinking?
It's not going well right now, to be honest. I'm on like coffee and seltzer for the most part these days, which you know, but I've acknowledged that I have a hydration problem, so I'm working on fixing it. I've got the Nalgene somewhere nearby that I'm trying to use regularly, but yeah, it's not great these days for me.
This is like not an attempt to like ask people how they're hydrated and whether they're hydrated enough, but now I'm realizing that they could come across that way. I mostly just want to talk about like what cool drinks people are having.
I interpreted it totally the other way, so that yeah, that's
this is not a personal call out.
I guess maybe I'm just self-conscious about my hydration right now, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I look dehydrated. I don't know. That's
you did that.
That's okay. That's good to know. I'm double fisting. I have the last of my coffee and a seltzer. So I am like, yeah, that's where we're at.
I'm also dual wielding. I've got my coffee. I have to drink electrolytes because I get really dehydrated. So I have like my little electrolytes that, by the way, just sit on my desk. So I am by no means the most hydrated person, because I'm like, maybe I'll just get another coffee. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have a coffee. I put maple syrup in my coffee, which even my Canadian friends are like, that's weird.
I do exactly the same. I literally did that this morning. So yeah, that's how I sweeten my coffee. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it just works better than like I don't know, like sugar or something. Like it adds depth that I like. So
I agree. Wait, no way. Okay, sick. Hell yeah. No, I don't know anyone else who does that.
Yeah.
I love it. Vincent, before we get into kind of the development of Heartworm, could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, you know, like you said, I made a game called Heartworm. It's a survival horror game. Beyond that, this is my first game, so I have not really done anything like this before. I kind of stumbled into it as a hobby. Like, it's something I always wanted to do, but I never really seriously pursued it. I was a web developer for a while at like various different just like random companies. And I've done some freelance stuff, but just like all around, I'm like very much a hobby driven person. I've been into music for a long time. I was into photography for a long time. Like, I just, you know, I always have like gravitated towards creative things, and eventually like just found game development as a means of kind of like combining all of my interests into one. So yeah, and now I'm here.
That makes so much sense. Like taking the technical skills that you have, and then taking your hobbies and taking the things you love and putting them together. Could you give us a brief overview of Heartworm before we fully get into it?
Yeah. So it is a retro inspired survival psychological horror game. It utilizes fixed cameras with some modern upgrades like over the shoulder camera that you can switch to and stuff like that, to kind of bridge the gap between like the old games that I'm inspired by, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and the more modern iterations of those games. But yeah, I mean, story wise, it's about a girl who has experienced some loss in her life that she's struggling with, and she hears about a house that has supposedly a means of contacting the dead. So she seeks out the house, and things don't exactly go as expected, and it kind of spirals from there. And yeah, that's the short. That's my Heartworm elevator pitch.
Love it. Love it. You have spoken a little bit about kind of your path into game development. What was the moment where you knew, where you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm actually going to make a commercial game that is going to come out.
Yeah, there were so many times I thought it wasn't going to happen that it's hard to know exactly when I felt confident that it was. But I guess like so for a lot of the development, I was working like my full-time job as well as working on Heartworm on the side. And about 2 years ago, I got laid off from my full-time job.
I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, it's honestly, it kind of just worked out. At the time, it was, a little stressful, but like, I think that was when I was like, okay, well, I have the opportunity now to kind of like, just like go full force and like try to put everything into this game while I'm figuring stuff out or whatever. And I think that was just like the moment where I was like, I have the opportunity now, so I know that if I try to do it, like, I don't know, I'm not like a super confident person. I think I'm a little skeptical of myself, probably too much, but I'm also like, I try to be optimistic. So at that point I was like, I have the opportunity to do this, and I believe that I can. So I'm gonna do it. And then yeah, I think from that point on, like, I knew it would happen. I didn't know exactly how the path was going to look, but I knew it was going to happen eventually. So yeah.
I think that's so scary to be in that position where you're like, I'm working on something that I really love. Like, I had this thing happen. What do I do? And it's one of those almost like an inflection point in one's life where it's like, okay, well, I could, go and search for full-time work, or I could see if I could make this project that I'm really passionate about work. So, I mean, congratulations. Like, the game is phenomenal. We'll get into kind of, I really want to talk about the aesthetics and the design and like all the modeling that you had to do in order to bring the world to life, because I feel like so much of the storytelling is in the environments and so much thought was put into that. But like, I can only imagine kind of knowing how much work you had ahead of you, but then also, excuse me, being at this inflection point and being like, all right, well, what do we do?
Yeah. I think it was it could have gone either way, but yeah, I think, like I said, like, because it felt like an opportunity, I was like, let's just try. And like, the worst that happens is I say I tried and it didn't go the way I planned, and the best case scenario is kind of where I feel like it went. So yeah, I'm right with you. Yeah.
I think that's so cool. I had this was many years ago, but I had a friend, like, anytime that I've made big decisions, she's been like, when you're 80 years old, do you want to look back and say I did the thing or I didn't do the thing? And I think about that conversation all the time when because I feel like I'm pretty risk averse in general. And I think about that all the time. So congratulations.
I think that's
again.
a great way to look at it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
What was the initial inspiration for the game? Because you started working on it, it sounds like, well before you went full time.
Yeah, I probably started like, I don't know, like 6 years ago at this point. So it was a long time ago. But early on, I didn't have. I mean, for a long time, I didn't have like a strong like path in my mind of like everything and how everything would play out in the game, but I had like an aesthetic in mind. I think like I was really inspired by like the biggest visual inspiration for me at the time was this photographer that I really like. His name is Gregory Crudson. And he does like these really elaborate like staged kind of supernatural feeling but also kind of normal feeling photographs. They look like movie stills, and I just like, I don't know, I was like, I knew I wanted to make a game with fixed cameras because I wanted to be able to control perspective and things like that, and kind of like treat it almost like a movie. And I wanted the aesthetic to be, I'm really drawn to like suburban aesthetics, and like because I grew up in the suburbs, and there's just like, I don't know, I can't explain why, but like I just have this like affinity for like the uneasiness that like permeates through them sometimes. And yeah, and I just like, I knew that that's like kind of the vibe I wanted to go for, and I knew I wanted to make things a little weird because I like when things get weird. And yeah, so I kind of just took like all these like little pieces of like, I want this, I want this, I want this, and I started, and then I kind of just like molded it as it came together, I guess.
I feel like that makes so much sense given the aesthetics of the game. Like it, to me, it's like such an artist's game. It feels very thoughtful. It feels like everything that you built out was very intentional, going back to what you said about like camera angles and wanting the player to experience something in a very particular way. So that makes a ton of sense. And that's like when I first heard about the game, it was on Blue Sky, and you had posted a clip of, this is like kind of late game, but it's like this massive library. And like a few things hooked me in. It was like the kind of creepy aesthetic of the library, but also the music. And I just like had that on loop a few times, and I was like, this is so cool. I really want to play this. So tell us a little bit about, on the creative direction side, how did kind of a cohesive creative direction come about? Because it sounds like maybe it was piecemeal. It was like, oh, we think, I think this might work, and this might work, and this might work, and it all kind of came together.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this is a good opportunity to shout out that, like, 2 years ago when I did start going full time on this, I also started to bring on some contract help. So like, by the end of the game, it wasn't just me that was making it. We had about 5 people, in and out working on it throughout that last long stretch of development. So without them, I think it would have been a lot more difficult to achieve what I wanted to achieve. So I had a lot of it was like, I guess a lot of the game has, I wanted it to have that like surreal feeling to it. So I think what I learned was that when I was trying to develop certain areas, like I really just like let myself kind of like go off of what the feeling was supposed to be for the scene or whatever. When it was very like free form for like a number of the areas, for the more surreal ones. For the more grounded ones, it was like, I guess I could give an example, but like there's a stretch where you're like walking between Sam, the main character's grandparents' house, and her bedroom, which is in the same house, but there's this like in between space where there's all of these other houses kind of like floating in the void. And that like was supposed to, I knew I wanted this moment to kind of like give us insight into Sam's perspective, like as she is like returning to her childhood home, basically. And it like opens up this moment for like, her to talk a little bit, but then we also have this like weird stuff going on in the background. So like I kind of had to just like feel it out to get the moments like those to feel right. But But for like the more grounded moments, that's where a lot of like references came into play. Like we had a Miro board of, which basically like, it was just a giant mood board of like, okay, this chapter, like we want it to encapsulate like this feeling, and like I kind of just collected like photographs, like I said, or like movie stills, and just like a lot of visual reference. So we had a baseline to go off of, and I even like a lot of areas in the game are based on places around where I grew up. So I even use like pictures from there to establish kind of like to help establish the visual identity, I guess, of the game. So
that makes sense. I mean, it all came together beautifully. So I think what you were doing worked.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about the music, because I was fooled. You use an artist name for the OST.
Yeah.
But it's I think 60 tracks on the OST. That's a ton of music to write.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, are you a trained pianist? There's so much piano in the OST.
No, I'm not really a trained anything. I'm more, I'm really just a hobbyist, or like, I'm self-taught in like all the stuff that I do. The like caveat I'll give is like, if you asked me to play any of this live, I would not be able to do it without practicing for like, I don't know,
That's
a year
fair.
probably. Like, but when it comes to like composing or pre-recording, like I think I just like have, I was in a lot of bands when I was growing up. I mostly played drums in all of them, but I always wanted to play like not a percussion instrument, basically. So I just kind of did that on the side, and that's kind of where I don't know, like picked up, I guess, the ear for it. So yeah.
I would have thought pianist, not percussionist.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like always a demand for drummers, I feel like, in bands. And I just happen to fit that role, even though it's just not, I don't know. I don't feel like a lot of drummers are like very into drumming, and I don't feel that way. I feel like it's more of a like a support instrument where like I want to be writing music. I don't want to be supporting. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the direction for the OST? Because I feel like, to me, and this is so biased because I'm a musician, I feel like sound in general and music contributes a lot to creating a specific atmosphere, particularly in survival horror. So what was that process like of developing kind of an overall direction for the music?
This might become more apparent like the more I talk about the game, but I'm not much of a planner. So I really like a lot of the time when I needed a song or something, like, well, I guess like overall I kind of had an established set or like vibe that I was going for. Like I knew I wanted it to be like piano forward for the most part. And I had like a collection of instruments that I kind of like went through, and I was like, okay, like I want this to be repeating, I tried to have like motifs that like repeated throughout. Like I kind of established a couple things. I was like, I want these things to be kind of like constant throughout the soundtrack. And then, I mean, 60 songs made it to the OST, but that's only because that's the limit on Spotify. I can't put any more songs in one album.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until I tried to. And then they were like, yeah. So I actually had to cut. There's like 80 in the game. And the amount that I wrote that didn't get finished is probably closer to like 100 and I don't know, 60 or something, like, and I'm sure, because like, something you start something and then like it doesn't work and you have to go back to the drawing board and whatever. And a lot of it was just like, it's like, okay, I need a song here, or it would be vice versa. It's like, I need a song here and I know what I want this to feel like. So I would try to like make it feel right. Or I would just, if I needed a break, I would try to write a song. And then if it worked, it worked, so a lot of, again, kind of just like feeling it out and trying to work on it as it came to me.
Hmm. I think I'm very similar in leaning into a feeling of like, what's this
Mhm.
meant to feel like? What is the player going to experience as they're walking through this hallway, or as they're walking outside in this neighborhood, or as
Yeah.
they're, in the clock tower, or whatever it might be in the wilderness. Um, and really anchoring also on motifs and trying to figure out like what that's going to be like, trying to figure out like what instruments maybe are going to be repeating. So kind of similar process to you. What was your favorite part about writing for the OST? Because I feel like that would be, I don't know, did you consider it a break from the other parts of development?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was nice because when I was like that's the other thing about like doing a little bit of everything is that
Hmm.
I probably have ADHD. I just like I can't do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Like it just like it would drive me crazy. Like so if I got stuck, which happened a lot, it was
Mm.
nice to be able to just like okay, like I would just go I would open my DAW and I would just try something. Like I don't know, just like like just to even if I didn't have a purpose or like a goal in mind, I would just like see what came out and like let myself kind of like breathe creatively that
Mm.
way. And a lot of the music was written in those moments when like I needed downtime or like I needed a creative reprieve and like yeah. It just and then it just kind of came together afterwards. I'd go back to it and iron it out and or expand on upon it. And yeah. So
Mm. I'm very similar in that I need multiple things to work on, because it's like if I get bored of something, I'm like, I better have another thing to work on. Otherwise, nothing's
yeah.
getting done, because
Yeah.
you just got to step away.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I mean, this is like such a selfish question because we get to
Mhm.
talk about music, but any that you gravitated towards where you're like, oh, I found this like free, I don't know, synthesizer, or I found this like thing that I really wanted to use.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay. 99% of the game, I'll split this. 50% of the game is Omnisphere,
Okay.
um, which is for people who don't know, it's like a super old like VST collection of instruments basically, and a lot of them are really weird. So that was like huge, and then the other 50% is just like addictive keys, the piano
Hell
VST,
yeah.
which like yeah, I just and then I just I would like process things a lot, but like it was those, if without those this soundtrack like would not exist. So that's yeah, I'm pretty like unconventional, I think, in my I also like I don't use a traditional DAW. I use Renoise. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not, no.
It's not, I don't think no one I've ever brought it up to has ever heard of it. It's
Renoise.
more like a tracker, like
Okay.
it's vertical, like almost like the
Okay.
piano roll in Fruity Loops, but like
Hmm.
vertical, and it's only that. But you use like hex codes to like manipulate the way that sound works, and like it's
Oh.
I don't know why I use it, but like I started using it like 15 years ago and I just never stopped using it. So it's just kind of yeah. So that those three things are like 99% of the game soundtrack. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
That when you're describing the verticality of the DAW, I use Ableton, and so you've
Okay.
got like your very traditional like left to right, minute
Yeah.
1, minute 2, minute 3, but it also has
Yeah.
kind of more of a vertical like looping mode. And so
Oh,
you can
sure.
write different layers and like turn them on and turn them off at various
Yep.
points. And I love experimenting with that because you can just kind of throw things at the wall and see what works. And then you're
Yeah.
like, and then I can put it into my arrangement
Yep.
and whatever. But I don't know that I'll ever be able to leave Ableton because I have the option of using both. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Anything else that you wanted to mention on the music side before we switch topics?
Um
Because I could be here talking about music all day, but I recognize
yeah, no,
that.
I know. We could probably no, I guess just again to shout out. So Michael Jench, who did
Yeah.
a bunch of the environment art, also helped with a couple of tracks on the soundtrack. Particularly, just the one to shout out here is the one that was used for the trailer and the end credits, which is that was like a collaborative effort between me and him. He basically reinterpreted the main menu theme into like a more like mine was very like retro and like I used like some really basic synthesizers and stuff, but he kind of fleshed it out and then I added guitar over it, and I was just really proud of like how that was he did all the instrumentation otherwise, and then I was like, let's throw some guitar on it because then it'll give that like kind of like Yamaoka sound. Like I don't know, I we wanted to make something that sounded like it would have been in like Silent Hill 1 or 2, and then so I was really just like, I have to shout out Michael because I feel like that song is like one of the people seem to like that one the most from what I have seen online, and without Michael trying to like reinterpret the theme, like it never would have happened. So I was really happy that came together the way it did.
Yeah, I think it came together beautifully. I think it's called Is It Back to You? Yeah. So good.
We also this is an exclusive insight here. There is a vocal track that was written for that song that has yet to be recorded because we just never had time to do it. So maybe one day there will be the non-instrumental version. I don't want to make any promises, but I thought it was kind of cool that we had like because we were going to have like this like this vocal driven song at the end of the game, but it just didn't happen because it's kind of a so maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Yeah,
check Bandcamp, everybody.
Keep refreshing.
That's awesome. I mean, I mentioned this before we started recording, but another song that really stood out to me was the school one where that weird synthesizer comes in and you go into this library environment and there's these like robotic mannequin looking things, and I'm like terrified. I think I just stood there for a couple minutes. It's like I don't know which one's gonna move. One's definitely gonna move, and it's definitely gonna scare me when it does. But the music in that section too, like there's a synth that comes in that's like whoa, and it's just like, I mean, I'm not doing it justice, but maybe that was Omnisphere.
It definitely was.
So good, so good. I really feel like music in general can help bring, especially a survival horror game, to life. So amazing. I didn't know that you did the OST. Again, I was fooled. But I think it turned out fantastic.
Thank you so much.
It really worked for the game. I think that's the most important thing, is that cohesion, and I'm glad that it was also like respite for you as well when you got stuck on something where it's like, I can just express my creativity like somewhere else.
Yeah, it was also like, I don't know, I know, I'm sorry, like we were not gonna keep talking about it, but
too bad we're talking about music.
It was like, I think like as like a personal thing, like I like from the beginning I was like, and this is not against like, I love that Michael helped me, helped with a couple songs, but from the beginning I was like, I'm going to do all of the music. Like I didn't want anyone to do the music because I wanted to like challenge myself to do something just to prove that I could do it, because I've never done anything like this before. And like I think I have a lot of imposter syndrome for like almost every facet of my creativity. So like it was also like very, like I'm really happy with how it came out too. I'm glad, and it's reaffirming to like hear that you think it was good, and to hear other people enjoyed it. But like it was really like for me that I had to do it, I think too. So
I love that. And I actually just had this conversation with my therapist because I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot. And it's exactly what you said. It's collecting proof that you can do things. And he's always like, what's your proof? Like, okay, your brain's saying this, but what's the proof? Is the data showing you this, or is it showing you the narrative that you have in your head? So yeah, that really resonates. And yeah, again, like so much of it I think is cohesion as to whether an OST is going to work for a game. And I think in this case, I mean, shout out to you and all the weird noises that you found in Omnisphere, because I think it really worked. It really worked. And there were some tracks as well where it almost felt like there was like elements of sound design in the music itself, which I think is a really clever trick that I've used before too, where it's like, we're not going to have time to implement this the way that we want. Just throw it in the music. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's funny you picked up on that because it definitely that was kind of the thought I had was like I like it's so hard to like I don't know make certain things like happen at the right time and just like with a game that is supposed to be like older, I feel like they used to use that trick a lot too, where they would kind of just like put stuff into the soundtrack that was like supposed to be like ambient noise kind of, but like all, you know, there are a lot of tricks and yeah, that's I think that was a particularly helpful one for like setting the tone for a lot of areas. So
yeah, a huge fan of that. we can we can decrease our workload somewhere else by doing something cool with the music. Hell yeah, I'm all for
yeah,
it.
totally.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit because you had mentioned earlier kind of different options. I forget whether we were recording at this point, but different options in terms of like over the shoulder camera, you know, specific camera angles, etc. And the game kicks off with accessibility options, which I thought was so fucking cool. And you can choose between like retro and modern graphics, tank versus modern controls, over the shoulder aiming, or tank aiming. I can only imagine the extra work that created as well for you and the team. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about like how difficult was it to make sure that everything worked as intended?
Yeah, I mean it definitely it was difficult from the beginning. I knew I wanted to kind of allow for that hybrid like fixed camera over the shoulder look, just because I thought it was like honestly I just thought it was kind of like a cool like visual hook that would make us stand out a little bit, rather than just going with only, you know, the traditional like it's the way it was back when it, you know, was the way it was or whatever. I just thought we should modernize a little bit, but then also, you know, as things were going along, it's like I want people to be able to experience it the way that is most comfortable to them. You know, I know there's a lot of controversy when it comes to like tank controls because it's not something that's used as frequently anymore. It can be disorienting. So yeah, I just like it did take time, and it was, you know, I think like developmentally intensive as far as like that is all concerned, but it was just not, it was kind of non-negotiable. Like I wanted to make sure that we had the option for people to play the way that they wanted to play, basically. So.
It's very clear that empathy was like embedded in the DNA of the game, including like the arachnophobia mode, which thank you so much for including that because I had to turn it on. Like I can't deal with spiders in games. I just thought it was so funny that your arachnophobia mode is like a bright pink, like trapezoid.
Yeah,
I loved it.
that one was, it was like, you know, a lot of people requested it, and I wanted, like, I don't ever, you know, people online are like whatever, but I have no problem including stuff like that. The only reason I wouldn't include an accessibility feature is because as like an extremely small team with extremely limited time and budget, like all of that stuff takes time and there's only so much that we can do. But that one, I was like, okay, I can do this. It's just not, it's not going to look very like, you know,
It was great.
It's not going to look great. Like it's so, so yeah, it was a very crude implementation, I would say, but you know, I just figure if it helps anybody get through that doesn't want to see what they don't want to see, I think it's enough. So yeah.
I thought it was great. It made me laugh. So, you know, a nice little burst of laughter in a game where you're just really tense most of the time, I think was nice. Can I ask a follow-up question actually about because I totally agree with you, right? Like we're always working with limitations. We don't have infinite time, we don't have infinite resources. Like there's a lot of, I guess, opportunity cost, right? Like if we do this, we can't do this. If we do this, we can't do this. How difficult is it? And I don't know if this is going to be a long answer or not, but how difficult is it to get the fixed cameras right? Because like I mostly work, you know, in music and audio, but I've worked in Engine before, just making like small kind of solo projects. And I would imagine that the camera bit can be tricky because I mean, first of all, you need to choose where every single camera is. You need to frame the shot exactly how you want to frame it. There's a lot of testing. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of how complex that would be? Or that
Yeah,
was?
totally. I think I think it helped that I have I have a photography background, because I feel like I am a little bit more, and I'm kind of the belief that anyone can do anything, but I just feel like I have some more practice in like you said, kind of framing, and kind of there's a lot to consider, because there's, like you said, like you have to, when you're switching angles, like you have to kind of keep the continuity, and there's times when you can't keep the continuity between like shot to shot, because like you go, there's like a 90-degree turn, or it's against a wall or something, and you have to like try and think how disorienting is this going to be, and compensate for that, but also try and make it look good. And like I think it really is like a pretty time consuming thing. It and I was constantly tweaking like all through the game, like as I'm playing, I'd be like, oh, I want to go, I'd mark down, like go back to this camera and like move it back, or like zoom out a little bit, or lower, tilt it down, or whatever, like minor tweaks and stuff like that. But yeah, the manual placement of everything, it is time consuming, but I think by the end of it, I kind of had like I'd gotten into like a flow state where I was pretty good at getting it right the first time. And then, minor tweaks were necessary afterwards, but I think that's going to happen with anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I agree with you. I think anyone can do anything. It's just about the practice and having the time and like to build the skill ultimately. But switching gears, maybe entirely, like hard turn.
Sure.
On a previous episode, we had a game scout on, Rachel, who she works on the publishing side. We spoke a lot about kind of what does it mean to work with a publisher, and she gave a ton of advice for studios who were seeking publishing deals. What does it mean from a publishing perspective, like for a studio to be ready, or like how do they sense that someone is not fully ready for a publishing deal? So you managed on your very first commercial game to land a publishing deal. So from your side, to the extent that you're comfortable talking about it, like what was the path to signing with Dread XP? Because that's like, congratulations, I mean, on your first commercial title, to sign with the publisher.
Yeah, I still can't believe it happened sometimes, because I it's not like I had anything to show. I was like, well, I did all of this, so I have a track record or something. I had no track record, and they were willing to take a chance, and I am eternally grateful to Dread for doing that. They are the best. But yeah, I think like what made it enticing was that I had released a demo, and people, I actually multiple demos at that point. I released like 2, I think. And I had established that people were interested in seeing the game come to fruition. And and I think, while I didn't have like a traditional game background, I had like worked in jobs where we had shipped large, long scale projects before too. So obviously games are very different, and I learned that the hard way through the process. But like I think just like a combination of all of that kind of like, and I think confidence too. I think like being confident in your game and in your art, like I think that helps. But like, yeah, I think if you have something and you can prove that people want it, like, then if you can sell yourself, then anybody can get their game published. I think if all of that stuff aligns, which is a lot to ask for, and I think I got lucky in a lot of ways too. So I want to recognize that as well. It's I'm sure like 10 things could have gone differently, and we wouldn't even be here talking. It's some of it is in our control, and some of it isn't. So just as much as you can to manage the things that are in your control, I guess, and try the best you can. Yeah.
I like the insight of kind of putting a demo out for feelers, basically, and seeing like if people are interested. And I think you chose, I don't think I played the first demo, but I played the one immediately before the game came out, which was The Neighborhood. And I think that was a really great choice. I mean, obviously that's subjective, but like it was enough of a taste for me to be like, I want to know what else is in this game. And there was enough of kind of the surrealism that you were talking about where I was like, oh, there's definitely going to be more than just this. So I like that insight of put a demo out, get some feelers, see how people are feeling about things. And then, take that information, do with it what you will. In your case, secure a publishing deal, which is awesome. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say hi to the raiders that came in. Hi, raiders. Welcome in. Chip, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, everybody. We will open up chat in a little bit, but thanks for joining us for our recording. Switching gears again, Vincent, if that's okay. It feels like a lot of the storytelling in the game was very ambient and realized through the environments. And I can only imagine the amount of 3D modeling that you had to do, but it was all kind of cohesive and told this like universal story of grief. Like everywhere that you went, you could kind of see these little pieces that you were being fed of the narrative. How did you balance the sheer amount of work that you had to do? Because you mentioned like, you worked on it alone for a little bit. You ended up getting a team of, I think you said 5 people. Like that's still such a small team for, to me, like how big the game was. If we consider, and maybe this is like my game dev brain, but like anytime I play games, I'm like, oh my God, they had to like make that from scratch. Excuse me. So tell us a little bit about production and like, how did you balance everything and how did you prioritize?
I think that was one of the things we struggled with the most, and it's really just due to my inexperience of leading a team. I think it was really difficult to once like I think I kind of like naively was like, oh, if we add more people, it will get easier, and like in a lot of ways it did, but in a lot of ways it also added like complexity, because then it's like now we have to manage what everyone is doing, and we have to kind of like manage time differently, and just all of this. Like, it was a learning process for a lot of it for me. And I think we stumbled a little bit in the beginning, but over time we did kind of figure out what worked for us. And like I said, like everybody on the team, like Michael could just crank out, he did a ton of the 3D art for the environments. So like I would like block out areas, and then as I finished blocking them out, then I would be like, okay, Michael, like now you can go in and kind of, work on top of what I have. And then I would move on to the next area, and kind of, we eventually got into a rhythm where that made sense for the way that we were working. It was very difficult. I think one of the more overlooked parts of the process for me going in now in retrospect, I realize that in the future, I think I'll have a lot more insight into the production side of things than I did on my first try here. So
it's, I think it's more than, maybe someone who's on the outside looking in expects for it to be. Like I've managed teams before, and it's tough. Like it is a lot harder than I think people realize to manage teams, and there's a lot to manage, because ultimately like we want to make sure the people on the team are happy. And so how do we balance that with like needing to get stuff done, right? So I definitely hear you on that. It's more challenging, I think, than people expect. But throughout development, did you have a game dev philosophy that you kind of leaned on? Or maybe you now, after finishing the game, you have a game dev philosophy that you're going to hold dear on your next title? If you're working, I mean, if there will, hopefully there will be a next title.
I think there's probably a lot that I could go to, but just what comes to mind quickly is like, don't be afraid to cut. I think there are a lot of there's a lot of stuff that we cut from the game, but I think it's better off for it for the most part. And trust your instincts, and allow to, I think, like if you're working on a team, like trust the people that you're working with too, because like you're working with them because they're good at what they do. So like, I think both of those in combination are like, you know, obviously there are exceptions all the time, but like generally I think those are like pretty good philosophies to stand by when you're doing something like this, especially at a larger scale, which like, I think the other philosophy that I'm going to use moving forward is like scale down. Like don't, you know, I don't think the next game is going to be as big as Heartworm. I think I kind of bit off more than I could chew with this one. So yeah,
it's a big game. Scope creep is real.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was going to be a bigger game too.
Yeah.
And like, it just like, it never would have gotten finished. So like, it's,
how do you feel about the quote, done is better than perfect? Because I feel like I fall into the trap of, oh, maybe we can just increase the scope and it'll make this better. And then it's like, eventually things just need to get done. And I had to like print that out for myself a few years ago and like stick it on my wall, because it's been, and like, particularly when I'm working on personal projects, I'm like, oh, but I could just add this. And it's like, it's never going to get done. Like, it's never going to see the light of day if we don't like scope down and get it out. And that doesn't mean that quality doesn't matter. Obviously it does. And clearly there was so much empathy in the development of the game and thinking about the player and how the player was going to experience things. But yeah, I'm curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, totally. I still something that I struggle with regularly, but like I have tried to kind of live by that, like as I have made this game, and more so, because I 100% agree that done is better than perfect. It is. I think it's really hard for people who want to be creative and express themselves, because it's really vulnerable. And you're like, oh, if I don't express myself perfectly, then people will not understand, or they will think that, you know, think XYZ or like whatever, like, and not the way that I want them to think about it. And but the thing is, like, if you never express yourself at all, then people won't have anything to think, because they're never going to be able to even form an opinion. So like, you have to understand that other people are empathetic too, and will I think it's really hard because we see people online and they just like have like such like harsh, like, oh, like that's terrible, you know, whatever, like all the negative like stuff that's out there. And it's discouraging because you're like, oh, I don't want someone to see what I did and only focus on the bad parts of it. Like, people who understand will get it. They will be like, oh, I understand what this person was trying to do. Yes, it's not perfect, because literally nothing is perfect. Like, it's an impossible standard that we try to hold ourselves to. So like, just do it and move on to the next thing and do better next time. That's like my philosophy right now, is like that it's literally the best we can do, and anything else just impedes on you making any progress. So
yeah, I 100% agree with everything that you said. There's you touched on vulnerability. Like, it is really vulnerable making things that don't exist, that come from you and your experiences. It's super vulnerable. But I think the courage to be seen is an important muscle. And I always think that it's worth it to share, because to your point, the people who will get it will get it. And I don't know why there's this culture on the internet of people just like openly hating things. Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe go do something that you enjoy. Yeah, but I think it's incredibly vulnerable to share like whatever it is, whether it's music or illustrations or photography or whatever, because it's us saying, this is my perspective on this thing. And I like what you said at the end of like, do it as best as you can now and then learn from it and do better next time. And I feel like I mention this every episode, but I had a mentor years ago tell me, you know, when you're stuck making big decisions and you don't know what to do, like, remember that you're making the best decisions today, whether big or small, based off of the knowledge, the experience, the people around you, you know, everything that you have learned today. You can't pull your arm out into the future and grab future experience towards you and then use that today. But you're never going to get to that future experience if you don't do the thing today. So just do the best that you can. Yeah. Beautifully.
That's great advice. Yeah.
It has really stayed with me for like maybe 15 years now, I think is really, really great advice. I think one like thread that we've been pulling on this whole time is that making games is hard.
It really is.
It is. It's hard. There's a lot of moving pieces in general, and we've touched on a lot of them. What do you think is the hardest thing about making games? That's a very absolute question. Maybe like, what's the first thing that comes to mind in terms of like why it's so hard making games?
I think like, it's so tough because there really are. I think every aspect of it is difficult. It's I think people underestimate, like people who aren't in the space, like in any capacity, like severely underestimate how hard it is. It is a miracle that any game gets made, in my opinion.
Agreed.
And I don't know. I think just like, I think it's so hard to pick one facet that's like particularly. I think like managing like coming to like combine like your expectations and player expectations can be really difficult. Like it's kind of that same like thing. It's like of like that like expressing your vulnerability, because you're like, I'm putting something out here the way that I want it to be perceived, but like you can't always know how people are going to react to the things that you put out. And I guess this is more abstract, but like it's like, I don't know, it's hard to like be okay with not being able to please everyone. It's I don't know. I'm just gonna keep talking because there's so many things that are so hard about it. So I'm just gonna stop here and be like, that's this. Making a game is hard. That's If you know, you know. Like that's I don't know. Like
agreed on all fronts. This was like many years ago at this point, and I forget what game it was, but I remember like all game devs everywhere being like, "Oh my god, that character put on a jacket and it didn't clip." It looked like they actually put on a jacket, and everyone else was like, yeah, they just put on a jacket. But anyone who has ever touched game development in any capacity is like, yeah, they put on a jacket. Like this is next level tech.
No, exactly. That's a perfect example.
I'm with you. I think it's a miracle that games get made. Like the amount of thought, effort, testing, feedback that goes into it. It's not to mention all the other stuff that you called out, the vulnerability, the bringing a vision to life, etc., not knowing how it's going to be received. Keeping track of time, because I want to make sure we have time for a Q&A. I see in the chat. The game devs know. If you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
I think it would be like kind of along the same lines as what we were talking about, just like with vulnerability and like finishing things, and just like, I think when I was a lot younger, I was so afraid that what I did was bad that I didn't keep doing it. I like stopped for a long time because I was like, oh, well, I'm not good at this. So like I should not show people, or I should not whatever. I was like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I was embarrassed to show people what I was trying to do. So then I became less creative over time because I was like not spending time working on creative stuff because I didn't want to experience, embarrassment or like whatever. And it's just like, I don't know. Now at this point, like if someone is like, oh, like I don't really like that doesn't, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Like I don't care. Like it's just like, like I wish that I would be so much further ahead if I just ignored what other people thought and just focused on improving myself. Like you are going to be bad. Like I wish I could just go back and say like, it's okay to be bad at stuff. Like I said before, like you'll just do better next time. Like that's it. Like it's the worst that can happen is you do it again. And like, it's really not that bad. But I feel like when you're younger, you're like, oh, this is the end of the world if this is bad, like, and I will never recover and everyone will whatever. I don't even know what I thought, but like, just like, if you're thinking like, if whatever is stopping you from doing what you want to do is in your head, then just do it anyway and ignore
Mhm.
what is in your head, because that's not a good reason to not do something. So
Mhm. My younger self needs to hear that too. Can you tell her to?
yeah, if I figure out a way, I'll make 2 stops on the
Great.
way back.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Amazing.
Yeah.
I'll just add to that. I think one thing that contributes to that, well, first of all, I think when we're beginners, everything is hard and everything is
Yep.
not going to be perfect, and it might not even be good.
Yeah.
But I think it's enough to enjoy the process of making art, to keep
Right.
doing it. Like, I think it's just good for the spirit, regardless of whether you show people, and hopefully you do, and
Yeah.
hopefully someone resonates with it. But the other thing, I think culturally, there's such an emphasis on talent versus skill. And the
Mm.
greatest compliments I've ever gotten was, wow, you're so skilled at this thing, not wow, you're so talented. And I think talent
Right.
insinuates kind of oh, you were born with this thing, when it's like, no, 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 no. This
Yeah.
is like hours and hours and hours of work and practice and Googling and
Yeah.
curiosity and asking for help, even though that's vulnerable, etc. Like
Yep.
creation and practicing your craft and getting good at your craft is a skill, and we're
Yeah.
constantly getting better. And that's
Yeah.
the thing that like is cool, is that, yeah, like even when you reach a place that you're maybe happy with at that time, like there's always room for improvement. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, please make that stop when you go tell your younger self.
Yeah. Absolutely. Will do. Yeah.
Thank you. Vincent, thank you so much for coming on the show, for agreeing to come on. And we're about to open up chat for Q&A, but for everyone who's watching the VOD, thank you so much for being here. As always, our socials will be in the description. If you'd like to follow us on social media, please go play Heartworm. Vincent did not pay me to say this, but I think I might replay it actually at the end of the year.
Awesome.
I really, really, really enjoyed it. But if you're watching and you have any feedback or topics you'd like to see covered in the future, let us know. Thank you again, and we'll open it up for Q&A.
Thank you so much.
Vincent, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. So thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you coming on.